Hello and welcome. This is Jennifer McGuire. So I am super excited about today's video for a couple of reasons. First of all, I share a technique that I am crazy about and I'm hoping you will like too. I call it Distress Ink Monoprint and it's easy. And I have 26 cards in this video. Yes, that's a lot, but I had a bunch of dies that I really wanted to use. And so I went to a crafting retreat with some friends. And I can't focus on making cards, so the entire time I was there, I did die cutting and gluing together of die cuts for a stacked look. So I had all of these die cuts all done with white cardstock, and I brought them home, and I combined them with the technique that I'm going to show you, with the backgrounds that I created. I will start with the technique first, so if you just want to watch that, you can. And then I will move on to all the card examples. Now, all of the dies that I use today are from Memory Box, Birch Press, or Poppy Stamps. I'm a big fan of theirs. I've bought many of their dies, and since Dave, the owner of those companies, knows I like them, he sent me a bunch more to play with too. So that's why you'll see so many different examples in this video. But keep in mind, the technique and the design is the same on all of them. So hopefully you have some products in your own stash that you can use to come up with cards like these. And by the way, I'll be sending these cards to some blog readers, so if you're interested in possibly getting one, be sure to head to my blog to see how. Okay, let's get started with the technique. I am crazy about this technique. I call it a Distress Ink monoprint. It's a faux monoprint, but basically we're going to create two backgrounds at once by pressing them together, and it really works well. So I have Neenah Classic Crest Solar White cardstock. Probably any white cardstock would work for this. And I'm covering it very generously with Distress Ink. Now, notice, I am not caring to blend these together well. You can see it looks like a hot mess, but that's okay. It doesn't matter for this technique. At the same time, I'm going to create a background in the same way using Distress Oxide inks in the same color. Now, Distress inks, which I used on the first one, and Distress Oxide inks, which I'm using on this one, are different in many ways, and I will link to a video up here on the top right to explain how they're different. But for this technique, they really act the same, and you get very similar results. So you could use either. You can see that the Distress ink on the left is a little bit more intense, whereas the Distress Oxide on the right is a little bit softer. If you don't have either of these inks, you can definitely try this with other dye inks, and it may work. Now at this point, you really want these to dry. Give them time to dry, heat set them, whatever, because we're going to heat emboss on top. Distress ink will hold embossing powder if it's not dry. I'm very generously using my anti-static powder bag to apply over the ink surface, just to make sure nothing sticks where we don't want it. I'm stamping with VersaMark Ink, a large background stamp. You could use any kind of stamp for this, and I'm going to show you several examples to show you that a variety of styles work. This is the Impression Obsession Boxwood stamp, and I think it's just gorgeous. And I am adding Hero Arts Ultrafine Clear Embossing Powder. Any clear embossing powder would work here. Before I heat emboss on the other background, here's a little trick you can do to make sure your background isn't sticky or still wet before you add your embossing. I just take my embossing powder and I just pour it on the unstamped background. If any of it sticks to the background, you need to heat set it more or make sure you very generously use your anti-static powder tool. So since not much stuck on there, I knew I was okay and I could use my anti-static powder tool and be good to go. So I'm going to stamp the same background with VersaMark Ink on the other background and clear heat emboss that. So I'll end up with two backgrounds here, one that was originally done with Distress Ink and one that was originally done with Distress Oxide Ink. You can see wherever we did the embossing, it gets darker and shinier there. Basically what we're doing is trapping that color underneath the clear embossing layer. So let's look at the two backgrounds that we have so far. On the left-hand side here, we have the Distress Ink background. The right-hand side, we have the Distress Oxide Ink background. You can see the one with the Distress Ink on the left is more intense, where the Distress Oxide on the right is a little more muted or softer looking. But the technique works with both. Okay, so now it's time for the fun part. I have 2 more pieces of white cardstock here, cut to the same size. They're all 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I'm using some tape to create a hinge to tape our inked background up against one of our plain cardstock backgrounds. You'll see why I'm doing this in a moment. You really don't have to do this step, but I found it very helpful. Next, we need to have a die cut machine ready. I'm sure you could use any die cut machine for this. I just grabbed my Sizzix Big Shot Express. We're not going to die cut. We're just using the die cut machine to apply pressure to our backgrounds for the technique. If you wanted to, you could just apply pressure with your hands, but this works great. So I have my hinged piece open. I'm going to cover the plain white cardstock with scrap paper so we don't get it wet. And I have a water spray bottle here, nothing but water in it. I'm going to spray this pretty generously. So you saw how many spritzes I did there. Then I'm going to quickly close our little hinge, put that between my 2 cutting plates without any dies, and run it back and forth through my machine. Now the machine is applying pressure, which is going to transfer some of the ink from our inked piece to the plain white cardstock. And I'll explain it all as we go through some more examples. But check this out, it's like magic. You open it up and look at this. You have 2 backgrounds. One is the inked one that we embossed on the right, and on the left is just the excess ink. And you can see the soft pattern that you get from it. Now let's do the same thing with the Distress Oxide example to show you that it works just as well. You can see the water activates the ink a little bit differently. It kind of makes it white and soft looking. But when you run it back and forth through your machine, you get the same cool effect. Check this out. On the left, we have our embossed pattern. On the right, we have a new soft pattern created with the excess ink. I am just crazy about this technique. So let's compare. On the top, we have the backgrounds created with Distress Ink. On the bottom, we have Distress Oxide Ink. The extra pieces on the left look pretty much the same. These 2 look slightly different, with the oxide on the right being a little bit softer, but this shows you the technique works with both inks. Let's do some more examples, and I'll explain more about this process as we go. I was afraid this wouldn't work well with detailed background stamps like this one, but it does. So on this white cardstock, I started by applying a bunch of different colors of Distress Oxide ink. And on top, I clear heat emboss that background stamp, just like we did on the last example. I've got my little hinge created. I'll spray the inked portion pretty generously with water, close it up, and put it through the die cut machine. So what's happening is when you put the water on the Distress ink background, any of the Distress ink that isn't heat embossed will be activated. So you're activating that ink and it becomes kind of like watercolor. And when you put it through the machine and press it together, you're transferring some of that excess color onto your plain white cardstock. And look at it, it worked really well with the detailed stamp. In fact, I think these outline stamps or detailed background stamps almost are more effective than images with solid areas. But I found it works with anything. So I'm going to do a few more here. When I spray it with water, you can see the color kind of activating. And then when you run it through the machine, it presses that color to the plain white cardstock. I'm going to continue to show you a few more examples here. And every time you see me go off screen, I'm running it through the die cut machine. So the cool thing about this technique, by the way, is I was doing it by just applying pressure with my hand, and I was getting good results. But my friend Jana Millen, and I'll link to her blog below, she's one of my dear crafty friends, she suggested running it through a die cut machine, and it worked great. So I have to give her a big shout out for helping me get this technique just right, and I'm hoping you try it because, as you can see, it's really effective and fun to do. If you're wondering why I use that piece of tape to hinge, that's so that the papers don't shift when I put them in my die cut machine. You want them to stay right up against each other how you originally put them together so you don't get a messy look. And by doing that hinge, you can be sure it stays in place. Now this one I think is beautiful. I do feel this works best with more vibrant colors of Distress Ink or Distress Oxide Ink, just because you can see more of the color transfer to the other piece. Another tip for getting more intense color is you can do the spritzing and running through the die cut machine process twice to transfer more color. Here's an example. Here I'm spraying this with water, but I must have missed the corner. I didn't get the corner wet enough. So I'm going to close it up, run it through my machine. Didn't realize I didn't spray enough water, and I open up and look at that. There's a corner where the color didn't transfer. That whole side didn't transfer very well. So what I'm going to do is repeat the process. Spray the inked background again, run it through the die cut machine again, and you'll see this time more color transfers and the background gets more vibrant. So if you really want to, you can do the process twice, where you spray it twice and run it through the machine twice. Another tip is that you can do this with stamps other than background stamps. So you could ink up your paper, clear heat emboss any stamped image, a word, a shape, anything you want, onto that inked background and do this process. In today's video, I just used a bunch of different background stamps since I needed inked backgrounds to create the cards I'll show you in a little bit. And I wanted to show you a bunch of different styles of background stamps just to prove that this technique works with pretty much any stamp you may have. I have one more example to show you, and this one's a little bit different. In this case, instead of using multiple colors and an ink blending tool to apply the color, I'm just taking my Blueprint Sketch Distress OXIDE ink pad and smushing it all over my white cardstock to apply a heavy amount of ink. I then heat set to dry that background, use my anti-static powder tool on it, and I'm going to clear heat emboss a background on this. For this one, I'm using one of my newest favorite stamps, and this is the Ink Blot Shop Cable Knit Background Stamp. It's a beautiful cable knit pattern that has lots of detail. And when you do this technique, look at the results you get. On the left is a very intense cable knit pattern with lots of color. On the right is something much softer. So I encourage you to try this technique with any stamps you have, and I think you'll like the results. Now that we have a bunch of backgrounds ready, let's make a bunch of cards. For each of these cards, I used white cardstock for my die cutting. I die cut all of the dies 3 or 4 times and glued them together for a stacked look. It gives a really nice finished look with lots of dimension. But if you wanted to save time and energy, you could die cut one of the white die cuts and use that on your card. I was at that crafty retreat, so I had the time to do so, and I really liked the results when you have the stacked die cuts. I've done many videos showing how to stack die cuts, and I'll link to one here in the top right corner on the different adhesive options there are and tips, so be sure to check that out if you're curious. Okay, let's start with some of the examples. Most of the dies I use today are similar to this one. This is from Memory Box. It has 2 dies, one that cuts the inside piece and one that cuts the outside. And the nice thing is you can use them separately, and many of the outside frames can be used for non-holiday cards. Also, these are sized so that you can interchange different dies together with different sets. So that circle one that I brought in was from another die set, and it fits in this one. So here is the gluing together that I do. This is a stacked die cut. I had die cut this 3 or 4 times and glued the layers together. I now am using Gina K Connect liquid adhesive, which is my favorite strong liquid adhesive. And I'm gluing this right onto one of the backgrounds that I created earlier in this video. Once I have it in place, I put something heavy on it and let it dry for about 5 minutes, and it'll hold tight. I'll then take my scissors and I cut into the paper and right along the outside edge of this frame. I am going to use that leftover paper, so I'm going to keep it. I only have that one cut through it from the side to start the cutting, but I'd rather cut from the side like that than use a craft knife to cut the circle out. Now to put the remaining piece onto the back of this outside frame, I'm tracing the circle opening onto the back of our leftover piece. Just using a pencil, that will help me to make sure that I cut right at the right place. Now I'm going to cut just outside of that traced line. You'll see why I'm doing this in a moment. If you wanted to save time, you could have glued the inside frame directly onto the background and the outside frame and just cut the excess off of the outside frame. But I wanted to have a little gap in the pattern, which you'll see in a moment, so that's why I'm doing this. Now I'm putting the strong liquid adhesive on the back of the outside frame, and I'll glue that onto our inked piece. If you do not like using liquid adhesive, you could use a spray adhesive for these. I know a lot of people like to do that. I'm not a big fan of spray adhesives, but that is another option. Or you can use double-sided adhesive. Again, that video that I linked to on the top right, we'll talk more about that. So now I'm gluing the outside frame onto that piece. Give it a few minutes and then we can trim off the excess. So now we have that continuous pattern from the inside frame to the outside frame with a little gap between. I have a 4.5 by 4.5 inch white note card that I've created. I am really into square note cards now, and this square frame is perfect for that. I'm using double-sided tape to adhere these pieces onto my note card, but you could use liquid adhesive if you prefer. I do recommend using a heavy weight cardstock for your note card base, since there are a heavy amount of die cuts on the front of this card. I'll link to the white cardstock that I use below. Now for the sentiment, I'm using a message from this Simon Says Stamp Tiny Words Christmas stamp set. There are a ton of Christmas messages in this set, a lot of happy holiday ones too, and I use this set many times in this video, including on this card. I just stamped a little sentiment onto white cardstock and then cut a little strip from it, and I'll glue that right onto my card using my T-ruler to make sure that it's straight. So here you can see the final card. We have that Monoprint Distress Ink background that we created earlier in the video. It's behind the die cut in the framed areas, but there's that open white ring in the center that I really think makes it all stand out. So again, you can see the stacked die cuts and how it gives dimension, but you could make this card with one layer die cuts too. Many of the cards that I show you today are made just like this one. Let me show you another version here. This uses a different type of die, and Lila helped me out with this one. This is the Poppy Stamps Seed Snowflake Joy die. I die cut it from white cardstock that's 4 by 5 1/4, and I'm backing it with lots of foam tape, so there's lots of dimension. I'm putting it over one of our monoprint backgrounds that I created earlier in this video, and then you can see that pattern show through those openings, and the openings are raised up thanks to using that foam tape. I really like dimension on cards. It makes a big difference in real life. For the sentiment under it, I'm using a Heffy Doodle Holiday Sentiment Duo stamp set. I really like this style of sentiments because it has the big words with small words underneath it. You could stamp them together or separately as I am here. I probably should have stamped this before I put the foam tape behind it, but I forgot, so I just used my MISTI stamping tool to make sure I stamped it just perfect. I'm using my Tonic Aqua Shimmer pen to add some sparkle to the inside of those outlined snowflakes. Then I got some help from Lila. She's really a big fan of gluing gems onto cards, so she helped me out on today's cards. These are Lucy's Cards gems. They're the iridescent clear, which is what I use throughout this video. And she's using the jewel picker to pick them up and put them into drops of Gina K Connect liquid adhesive. You can see how those added gems really make a huge difference on this card. And again, I use these gems throughout the video. This card shows that you can use a die to cut from a larger piece of white cardstock, then put whatever background stamping you create behind it so it shows through. Now that we've covered the basic assembly of these types of cards, let's just look at a bunch of examples. This first one uses a great die set from Memory Box called the Delicate Pine Frame Die Set. It has the inside frame with the tree, the outside frame die, and it also has little bird dies, but the little bird dies must have flown away, but you can see that I have the die cuts on my card. I also added a stacked Birch Press Hello Sugar Script die cut right on top of the other layering. I added the Aqua Shimmer pen to the inside of those snowflakes on the background. I really like this outside frame. It's got the fine pinpoint details and could be used on cards throughout the year. I used a pink and purple background on this one, and I used the partner to this on the next card. This also has the Memory Box Pinpoint Snowflake Circle Frame die. Again, there are a few dies in the set. You have the snowflake, which I didn't use on this card, the snowflake frame, and then the outside frame that could be used on any card. I also used a Hello die cut at the center and added some gems onto the pattern. Adding those little gems doesn't take long and adds nice sparkle that catches the eye. Although on most of my cards today, I saved time by making basic white heavyweight cardstock note cards. On this one, I decided to use a white shimmer cardstock just for a little bit of added interest. Here's another holiday card with non-traditional holiday colors, and this features the Memory Box Family Cabin Frame die. I did decide to try a colored cardstock for the note card on this one, but I think I prefer the white. You can see I also added shimmer by coloring in the outline snowflakes in the background. And my sentiment is made with the Birch Press Mary Sugar Script die cuts. Now that outside frame has some fun faux pinpoint stitching, and I think that would be fun to use on other cards also. This next card has a little wreath added to it that I wanted to show you. I made it with the Memory Box Pine Wreath die. This die set includes several different pine that you can cut and create a little wreath by gluing them together in a circle. After I created my wreath, I glued it onto the gate on my card. The gate was created with the Memory Box Cottage Gate die. Now this is a fun way to really make a card that has a lot to offer. You can combine different dies together, and by die cutting them all with white cardstock that's stacked together, you can create a lot of dimension with a really clean look. So here's the pine wreath dies that I used, and then I added a bow that I created with this Paper Smooches bow die set. I seem to reach for this one a lot because it has a lot of different bows in it, and that worked perfect on the wreath. Now for a much simpler and faster card to pull together, I have this one that I created with the Memory Box 3 Candle Circle die. This is a beautiful, simple die that you can put on the top of a card and stamp any sentiment underneath it. In this case, I put one of our Monoprint backgrounds behind it, but you could put glitter in there or anything you want. This perfect sentiment is from the Simon Says Stamp CZ Designs 30 Days of Thankful stamp set. I really like the messages in this one. Okay, using another background just like the last one, but in a completely different card design, we have the Memory Box Woodland Bridge frame dies. Now this die set comes with the frame, the inside frame with the trees, and a deer and a bridge. I like when there are multiple dies included so you can layer things up nicely. I also stamped a simple sentiment on it that says Missing You from an Ink Blot Shop stamp set. And I used a white gel pen to create little snowflakes falling in the background. Here's a look at that stamp set that the sentiment is from. This is the Ink Blot Sentiment Label Block stamp set. I like that there are so many sentiments included, both in a block print and alone, so they're perfect for sentiment strips. I used this stamp set a few times in this video. This next one features the Memory Box Elegant Holly Double Frame die set. This has an outside frame and an inside frame, both with lots of detail, and these extra little holly branches. I just used the inside frame on this card, and I used the outside frame on the card on the right. I was able to create both of these cards using one of the Monoprint backgrounds that I made earlier in this video. For the smaller card, I used the Clearly Besotted Hang Around stamp set to stamp the sentiment that says Be Merry. I really like the ornaments in this set too, and I hope to use that on another card. I also used the Poppy Stamps Whittle Snowman die to add a little snowman in the center of our window. The other card is quite simple. I kept most of it white and just have the pop of color under the holly frame. I added a Memory Box Holiday Lamp Post die cut to the center and also the word Peace. In this case, you can see that by stacking the die cuts, those white on white die cuts stand out more. That added dimension makes a big difference. This next card uses the softer partner background from the ones we just showed. And this one, I wanted a lot of it to show. So instead of using a frame die cut, I used a border die along the bottom, again stacking several for added dimension. I then added a piece die cut stacked, and then stamped a small sentiment underneath it from that Tiny Words Christmas stamp set. These Birch Press Sugar Script dies are some of my favorite. I have them in many words. I just feel the style is nice because it's bold and it works with a variety of card styles. I really like this particular design and plan to make more. This next one uses two dies, the Memory Box Sunburst Stripe Circle and the Pinpoint Angels. I stacked both of those, so I had lots of dimension, and then I glued the angel on top of the circle and allowed a little bit of our Monoprint background to show through. I also added a sentiment strip on top from the Simon Says Stamp Tiny Words Christmas stamp set. The next few cards feature the Monoprint backgrounds that we made with the My Favorite Things mandala background stamp. This one uses the Memory Box Wrapped Holly Circle Frame die. This one is particularly beautiful because of the detail. It's one of my favorites of all the dies in this video. And I added the Hello die cut on top. I really like that lamppost design with the trees and the snowflakes. I also like how the mandala background pattern draws a focal point towards the center of the card. For this next card, I actually used two dies together. I used the outside frame of the memory box wrapped holly circle frame die. Remember how I said a lot of these dies can be used with each other? This is a good example. In the center, I have the memory box Starlit Nativity Scene die, another one of my favorites from this release. And I added silver glitter cardstock onto the star, which is included in that Nativity Circle die. And I stamped Oh Holy Night on it from the Simon Says Stamp Tiny Words Christmas stamp set. And by the way, if you've stuck with me this far in this video and haven't thought I've lost it yet, I really appreciate it because I know this is a lot of cards, but I had so much fun making them. This one uses the memory box glowing candle die. Again, this is another good example of where stacking the dies together for dimension makes a big difference. That's a pretty busy background, but I'm able to pull off the layering of those die cuts because of that added dimension. It makes it stand out more and gives you a cleaner look. Okay, this memory box country church frame die set is another great one because it includes the two frames, then it has the pieces to create either a house or a church, and also some trees. So you can build a fun little scene. That's what I did here over one of our monoprint backgrounds. And then I stamped Christmas blessings from the Simon Says Stamp Tiny Words Christmas stamp set. I also used my white gel pen to create little snowflakes falling in the background. This next one features the partner background to the one I just showed you, and I used the Poppy Stamps Pinpoint Snowflake Frame die. This one has lots of pinpoint details to it, and it's a smaller die, so the price point is lower, and it fits nicely on a smaller card. I also used the memory box Jotted Piece dies. That die set comes with the word piece and the shadow die, but I only used the word itself. Again, lots of them stacked together here, so we have that dimension, which allows the white die cuts to stand out against the background. This one also uses some of that soft monoprint background, but this time teamed up with the memory box Meadow Tree frame dies. This particular die is another good one because that outer frame has that fun zigzag detail that you could use on any card, and you could use this die set all year round. I also added the little Whittle snowman and a sentiment from the Heffy Doodle Holiday Sentiment Duos stamp set. I use this one a lot this year because I like the big sentiment and the small sentiment, and you could even cut them apart and use them separately. You can see at this point that most of these cards have the same basic design, so I was able to assemble them very quickly. That's one of my favorite things about holiday cards is you can mass produce. Now, usually I don't use so many different dies, but you could get one or two and kind of mix and match the different parts together to create a bunch of unique cards. This one features that My Favorite Things marble background stamp, and I thought that looked like a really cool winter sky, so I plan to make more like that. I stamped a piece sentiment from this Memory Box Bold Christmas Greetings stamp set. There are lots of lovely sentiments in this one, and I thought it worked perfect on this card. And then we have the partner background from that marble one. So this is the lighter version. And I put it behind the Poppy Stamps Playful Deer Stitched Frame dies. I added some gems for snowflakes falling down and a sentiment from the Simon Says Stamp Tiny Words Christmas stamp set. I told you I use that one a lot. Again, I really like that marbly look in the sky. For this one, I used the same die, but I cut the snowbank and the deer off, so I just had a frame. That's another way to get more out of these dies. And I added a Memory Box Large Winged Dove die cut on top, along with a sentiment from that Simon Says Stamp Tiny Words set. I also have those snowflakes in the background that I created with little iridescent gems. Here's another one using rectangle frame dies. This is the Memory Box Delicate Pine Frame die set. This one actually includes an extra tree die, so you can layer them together to create a dimensional scene as I did here. See that tree in the background? That's just one die cut glued flat. The others are all stacked, so I get that dimensional look. Check out the outside frame on this one too. It's a fun kind of braided look. The Missing You is from that Ink Blot Shop sentiment stamp set that I showed you earlier. I reach for that Missing You sentiment an awful lot. Okay, this next one uses that cable knit background that I showed you where I just did one solid color for the monoprint. I have it inside of a memory box nativity circle die cut. Then I stamped Hallelujah with a matching ink, the same color of Blueprint Sketch OXIDE ink, so it matched my background perfectly. And I put one single gemstone in the center of the star. This is a very simple card. You could save time by not stacking that circle frame and have a very quick card that you can make many of. Okay, the next few cards are a little bit different. They use some really creative products. This is using the Poppy Stamps Pinpoint Snowflake frame and stencil. So you have the frame that's a die and the stencil. They're sold together, but can also be used separately. I die cut the frame, I die cut a few of them and stacked them together and put them over my cable knit monoprint background. I have that assembled on a card, and now I'm laying the stencil over the die cut. I'm putting tape over the rectangle window because I decided I didn't want to ink inside of that window. I wanted to keep it white. I'll use an ink blending tool with that same Blueprint Sketch OXIDE ink that I used for my background, and I'll lightly apply that over the stencil. This puts a tiny bit of color at the center of all of those snowflakes. Once I'm done, I will also add a stacked friend die cut to the center, and I covered the top layer of that stacked die cut with the Blueprint Sketch ink so it would match perfectly. I then stamped You're My Favorite with the Blueprint Sketch ink, so all of it's done with the same color. And that's from that Ink Blot Shop Sentiment Stamp Set. Check out that background. That's that cable knit background stamp. So beautiful and perfect behind this pretty busy snowflake die cut. There are a couple other frame, die, and stencil sets that I wanted to show you. This is the Poppy Stamps Holly Vine frame and stencil. Now, I didn't use this stencil in this case. I just used the frame, and I put it over one of my monoprint backgrounds. I then gold heat embossed a sentiment from the Poppy Stamp Christmas Time stamp set. I did that in gold embossing so it would stand out a bit from the background. Okay, my last card actually doesn't feature one of my monoprint backgrounds, but I wanted to show you the card because it's a very simple one to make, and I'm making a bunch of them for some of my friends. It uses the Poppy Stamps Nativity Scene die, and then there's a stencil that comes with it, but I didn't use this stencil. I just cut the die from white cardstock, then also from some white shimmer cardstock and silver shimmer cardstock. Now I only stacked the frame itself. Everything else is just one layer. And I added a platinum embossed sentiment to inside of the frame. I just wanted to show you this because I thought it was such a beautiful design and very simple to make. You just use cardstock, a little bit of embossing, and lots of die cutting. So that wraps up the video. Now I will say, remember, I used a lot of dies in this video just because I was having fun, but you can do these designs with just a few dies that you may already have. I hope you'll give this Monoprint Distress Ink technique a try. It really gives fun results and a great way to get new looks from the stamps you have. I list the supplies that I use below in my YouTube description, but it won't all fit, so you be sure to go to my blog for more information, along with photos of all these cards, telling what products I used if that's helpful. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up so YouTube knows you liked it. In the middle are a couple other videos you might like, and I hope to see you here again soon. Have a great day.